Welcome back. When it comes to talking about sequels, there's usually two branching paths that people go down when they're talking about that sequels, and one seems to be much more traveled than the other. One being that sequels are never better than the originals. I'm pretty sure Confucius said that. Now, I don't actually fully subscribe to that. The alternate path is that the sequels expand on worlds already created, taking what we already know, diving deeper, broadening the things that we already grew to know and love. Beefing up their properties kind of like Marvel beefs up their actors. You know good and well this isn't all chicken and rice. I mean, we're talking Terminator 2 Judgment Day, Pokemon Gold and Silver, Linkin Park's Meteor, which I think is better than Hybrid Theory Fight Me, and the crown jewel of all sequels in cinema history, in my opinion, Empire Strikes Back. Among the many other cases of sequels being much better than the original, it's also no secret how much I love Banjo-Kazooie. Might as well just start writing them up. We got visual, sound, gameplay, fun, replayability. They're all A+. It's all A+. I love this game more than I love myself. I love this game more than I love myself. I'm like an action figure. I think I only have like 7 phrases I know. By the thumbnail and the title, I'm sure you can already tell if you've got any kind of critical thinking skills. I think Banjo-Tooie follows the first path. I think Banjo-Tooie is an inferior product. And I understand how some people can think Banjo-Tooie is a better game, because it's not a bad game. It's actually a very good game, but I will still disagree with you 1000%. Before someone angrily comments yelling at me saying that Banjo-Tooie is the better game, stick with me for the next couple minutes and I'll explain to you why, because I know it's a hot button issue. Come along with me as I explain to you everything that I think, from the gameplay, to my 13 reasons why, to putting Banjo-Tooie into the gradebook. Everything you are about to hear is why I think Banjo-Tooie is the worst, best sequel in gaming. Enjoy. I understand the ambition and the approach that Rare took when they were developing Banjo-Tooie. I mean, they looked at Kazooie and thought, what if we just made it this humongous, big, grand adventure? And that's exactly what Tooie is. You go on this big, amazing journey. And for a little bit, Rare was developing Donkey Kong 64 and Banjo-Tooie simultaneously. And this is important to know because I think Banjo-Tooie is much more DK coded than it is Banjo-Kazooie coded. There are 2 major cardinal sins when it comes to Banjo-Tooie when we compare it to Banjo-Kazooie. The biggest sin, the one that really chaps my ass, that made me want to bang my head against the wall like basketball player Boban Jankovic, if you don't know the story, look it up, it's kind of insane, is the amount of character swapping in Banjo-Tooie. Donkey Kong 64 is infamous for the amount of character swapping. It's part of the reason why the game has aged so poorly. And unfortunately for us, the people that were working on Tooie looked across the aisle who were working on Donkey Kong 64, licked their lips, and said, I want a piece of that pie. And they put in character swapping into Banjo-Tooie, and it's a lot. This is a real path, step by step, on how to get one single Jiggy in Banjo-Tooie. Be Banjo and Kazooie and free a dinosaur in Witchy World. Do some train stuff. Separate into just Banjo and carry a dinosaur to the train. Combine back to the duo and go to the train. Swap into Mumbo and use his magic. Swap back to the duo. Swap back to Mumbo, use Mumbo's magic. Swap back to the duo and go to the dinosaurs. You have to swap between characters 6 times. You have to see at least 7 cutscenes, and you are greeted with 15 loading screens and 3 separate worlds. All for a Jiggy, all for one, and you keep going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. It derails any kind of flow that you feel in the game.
No dog! We have no flow. No dog!
Kazooie was free flowing.
Yeah, dog. We have flow.
You get into a groove, you're following the path, you're picking up things, you're like, ooh, what's over there? It's a ginger. Wow, look over there, it's a honeycomb. You're just picking stuff up. And Tooie, it's like, oh, hold on a second. We gotta go back. And then you start going back, and as you go backwards, the game goes, oh, wait a second, go that way. And you start going back this way, and it's like, whoa, go that way. You start going that way, and it's like, oh, actually go that way. That in itself ruins one of my biggest compliments of Banjo-Kazooie. It's how streamlined and condensed the entire game is. Every world, minus one exception, you go in, you do what you gotta do, you get out. You can 100% each world, bing, bang, boom, no backtracking. And Banjo-Tooie decides to go in a totally different direction, rather choosing a path of complication. Let's listen to SpongeBob, because he said it best.
Then you'll say, we're not talking about this, or this, we're talking about this!
And the loading screens we'll get to in a minute, because there's a lot. There is a lot. That Donkey Kong 64 DNA doesn't just stop at the character swapping either. Tooie's music, I think, was heavily influenced by Donkey Kong 64, whereas Kazooie's music is upbeat and chipper and fun, and it feels like stepping out into the summer sun. Tooie's soundtrack is much more mellow, dramatic, with low horns and hums and chants. Instead of feeling something whimsical and mystical, it's more like you're just alone in a foreign place. There are also boss fights in every single world in Banjo-Tooie, and that's not a bad thing. I love these boss fights. I think they're tremendous. They use everything that you learned in the game. It kind of coalesces into this big fight using the things you take from every single world that you learn, and it's wonderful. Not everything that is DK coded is bad, but we're talking about the separation of Kazooie and Tooie. Banjo-Tooie replaced a lot of their kind of silly gimmicky puzzles with a first-person shooter. You use Kazooie as a gun in Banjo-Tooie. A few minutes ago, I mentioned my two biggest cardinal sins when it comes to Banjo-Tooie. We've talked about one and a couple little other things, so it's about time that I tell you what my other biggest cardinal sin is with the game. That other cardinal sin is...
Drum roll, please.
The horrific level design. Just not great. Kazooie's worlds are tight and compact and laid out in a way that is very simple exploration. Every world in Banjo-Kazooie is built around a central structure that has 4 quadrants that aid and create this natural path of exploration with pathings and things to pick up and things to look at, and it's not the same in Banjo-Tooie. When you first pop into Mumbo's Mountain, which is Kazooie's first world, you're welcomed with like these bright, cheery xylophones, the iconic banjos being plucked. There's the bouncy horns. I don't know how else to explain it. And you just kind of know exactly where to go. You look in front of you, there's a hill that you can't climb, and there's a path with some music notes. In Mumbo's Mountain, how many times do you have to use a loading screen / transition wipe? I don't know what to call it.
100?
Bob.
No.
100?
It's 3.
3? Oh, come on, that ain't nothing. You get 1 for entering Mumbo's Skull, and then you get 2 for the termite hill, 1 at the bottom, 1 at the top. 3, that ain't nothing. You get in, you get out, done. Let's compare Kazooie with Tooie, because we're gonna look at Mayahem Temple, which is Tooie's first world. You load in to this Central American world, Aztec, Mayan, whatever it is, with these low horns, the pan flute, the brass instruments, there's like mumbo chanting, and the pathing doesn't have pickups because music notes are now in groups of 5 instead of individual. I don't know why they made that change. So you take a big part of the collecting and it's just gone now. Does anybody want to guess how many transition wipes there are in Mayahem Temple? Anybody? No one? Come on, give me a guess. Mumbo's Mountain had 3. First world in each? Mumbo's Mountain had 3, how many? You're wrong. It's fucking 15 of them. Tooie had built their worlds to be interconnected, like a Metrovania style where you learn moves and you do puzzles to connect all those worlds together. Meaning that the progress in Banjo-Tooie is non-linear compared to Banjo-Kazooie. Whereas in Banjo-Kazooie, there was only one instance where you need to backtrack by going to Gobi's Valley, get the running shoes, and go back to Freezy Peak. In Tooie, you backtrack everywhere. Everywhere. Tooie's entire structure is built on interconnectivity and backtracking. Though, is it really backtracking if by going back, you are actually moving forward? Confucius, I think he said that too. The worlds are just massive, but that size doesn't bring anything but a feeling of emptiness. Where are the things that make the worlds feel alive, like people are actually living in them? Where's the goofy little Easter eggs, the goofy little somethings that we saw in Kazooie? Nothing. Banjo-Tooie isn't goofy. It's funny, but it's not goofy because it's on ancient hardware on the 64, the size of the worlds didn't just affect the play style, it affected the performance. The frame drops are so bad. I know frame drops happen, especially on the 64, and it happened in Kazooie, but the frame drops are just so bad in Tooie.
Holy frames, Batman.
The worlds are so vast, so boring, so sparse, and rare things to do that they had to put in fast travel points. And without these fast travel points, going from point A to point B to point C would be against the Geneva Conventions. It would be so unbearable. However, there is one world that is built very similarly to Banjo-Kazooie worlds, and that's Witchy World. There's one central structure. I can't say that. There's one central structure, and it's the big top, it's the big tent, and there's quadrants. Every quadrant is unique, every quadrant is different, and you know exactly where to go. When you go there, you've either done it or you haven't. And it's no coincidence that Witchy World, to me, is the most fun world in all of Banjo-Tooie, and it's one that is most similar to Banjo-Kazooie. It's kind of goofy, it's got funny characters, and it's laid out in a ergonomical way. I don't know if that's right, but I have counted, to the best of my ability, every single loading screen, transition wipe in every world, Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie. They have to be unique, meaning if you go into Mumbo's skull to transform, coming out does not count against it a second time, because you have to go in and out to do it. The only one that can be counted multiple times is if the game requires you to go back and forth. Kind of like in Hellfire Peaks when you go from Mumbo's skull to Wumba, to out, to Wumba, to skull, and back. You know, there's like 4 or 5 in there just alone. In Kazooie, there are 9 worlds with a total of 48 loading screens that are required. With an average, I think, of 5.3 per world, that's doable, that's not bad. It really isn't. Keep that number up here. Don't let that go away because I keep making this big old hubba-lubba-bub, this stink about it. So what about Banjo-Tooie? How many individual unique loading screens are there in Banjo-Tooie? I counted to the best of my ability. Kazooie had 48, Banjo-Tooie 163 of them. 163. That's averaging over 20 per world. It's atrocious. It's disgusting. I don't get it. If I miscounted, let me know in the comments. I feel like I did a pretty decent job counting all the little entrances and exits and all the times you have to backtrack and all that, but if I counted wrong, let me know. Also, don't go and count them yourself if you don't already know, and if you do already know, tell me what kind of brand of autism you've got. Oh yeah, and these transition screens aren't even counting all the character swapping screens you get when you go from Banjo to Kazooie to Combine to Mumbo to Transform to Banjo and Kazooie. Like, there's so many more just purely because of the little that you get from changing the characters. The game is too big for its britches. Their ambition outweighed cohesiveness, which is a real shame. Also, this has nothing to do with anything, but can we talk about how Cloud Cuckoo Land feels like it was a rushed product, like it was just haphazardly finished? What the fuck is this enemy? What is this or that? What are they? And these random place structures that have no cohesiveness in the world, that goes somewhere else. Going back to what I said in the beginning, a good sequel evolves what is already created, but a good sequel does not revolutionize that property. Tooie plays so drastically in some areas that it feels like Rare just wanted to change things just for the sake of changing, which they are known to do, right? Sometimes it's okay to just let things be. I'm gonna list off everything that is different from Banjo-Kazooie to Banjo-Tooie. That does not mean that everything I list is gonna be bad or negative, but these are all the things that I have noticed that Rare decided, let's change it. Gingers are now spread randomly instead of being the same color coordinated 5 gingers in every world. There's randomly placed Jinjos of 8 colors, I think. The expansion of all the boots for the duo, like the Claw Clamper boots and the Springy shoes, amazing. It adds to the platforming of the game, it's very neat. Whoever's idea it was at Rare to add in 5 new types of eggs, genius. So much fun. And allowing the clockwork egg, which allows you to like skip through a lot of these different puzzles just by shooting a robotic Kazooie, amazing. Mumbo tokens are gone, and now we're using these boring ass Globos, and Mumbo and Humbo both take the same thing, they both take the same currency. Why not just let Mumbo keep the Mumbo tokens and go inkum bokum? Honeycomb pieces are no longer just like a free extra reward when you get 6 of them. Instead, they're a currency. And you gotta go randomly to this honeybee place outside of all the worlds in order to buy a new honeycomb piece. Banjo's face in the corner doesn't emote when you take damage anymore. Why would that be changed? Bottles dies and in comes Jam Jar, his military cousin, coming in to capitalize on the disaster of the death and charging you for all the moves that you need to learn. Tons and tons and tons and tons of jiggies in the late game require Banjo-Kazooie to be separated, which takes away a lot of the fun of doing the game as Banjo-Kazooie, because you work as a tag team, because that's what they are. And because of that, because you're separated, death becomes an alternative form of travel. It's faster than just going back to Kazooie or Banjo. A very stressful but wonderful sequel game show was at the end of Banjo-Tooie, which I did not expect at all. And that final boss fight against Grunty was a motherfucker. It had my heart racing, my watch gave me an alert because of my heart rate. It was like fighting the promised consort Radon for the first time again. It was wonderful. The tone of the world is dark and sad and gloomy. Kazooie, you pop it in, like everything's got eyes and they're happy and hip hip, and like the termites make fun of you for your shorts. That's about as mean as the game gets. And something that I moaned and groaned about constantly, especially near the end of the game, all of the cutscenes. We get it, Rare. You know how to program cutscenes. We don't need to see a dinosaur walk for 30 seconds. I'm good. Let me play the game.
Why is he smelly? We don't... Unless you're gonna give me the jiggy automatically, don't show me this. I know where he's going.
And don't forget about the things we already talked about, the level design, the character swapping, the music. I'm done with this. Let's go over to the classroom. Welcome back to the classroom. We got big news today. It's the first time we've had somebody come back to the classroom. Everybody welcome Banjo and Kazooie. I love being here so much that they came back for seconds, and these seconds aren't gonna be great. For visuals, I'm gonna give it a B. The game looks like a Banjo game. Everything looks right, but there's just something slightly off. And the performance of the game causes a big, big hit. Sometimes the textures miss the mark and the design miss the mark, whereas in Kazooie, they always just hit. And we're gonna give it an A-. Sound effects still go hard. All the little noises that the characters make, amazing. There's still some banger tracks. Witchy World is amazing. The way, like we talked about in Banjo-Kazooie, the music seamlessly transitions into different variations and forms of its own song is amazing. But too often, the world themes aren't great. Looking at you, Pterodactyl Land and Cloud Cuckoo Land, just kind of boring. For gameplay, a C+. I very much dislike the swap in the gameplay approach for Banjo-Tooie compared to Kazooie. I would much rather have this fun, lighthearted, like platforming game than this big grand adventure. Being Banjo and Kazooie, the music notes not being individual instead of being clumps of 5 or 10. Their level design just, ugh. For replayability, I'm gonna give it a C. We'll replay this game at some point. I always have. I replayed it. This is probably my 3rd or 4th time beating the game. It's not foreign to me. I knew what the game was, but I don't think if I replayed it again relatively soon and understood like where things were, the game might be more fun, but I'm not gonna do that. And then for fun, we're gonna give it a big ol' C for Kazooie. I can't be unfair and give it a bad grade out of spite, but there was just so many times where I thought, I wanna be done. There was a month-and-a-half gap between my 2nd recording and my 3rd recording. And all that falls on the massive worlds. The game can't be fun if I say to myself, I want to stop playing. I know, it's been a long adventure. Kazooie, and then Tooie. Tooie was a real big adventure. It's time that I take a break. What?